Welcome back, you guys, to Andy the Banker Show. We got a lot to discuss. All right. It's been what, almost a week since Liberation Day, and the stock market. We were talking about the stock market as if we're going through a 2008, as if we're talking about 2020. That's how bad it's gotten. All right. The fear in the stock market is definitely there. Every time I post a video, you guys are literally commenting that this is a bear market, stock market's going to collapse, and I want to discuss a little bit about that. We got to discuss a little bit more about the VIX. All right, the VIX is currently at a 46 or 47 right now. I think that's a little bit too high for what we are going through. And then we also have to discuss about the future outlook of the market, because right now everything in the stock market just seems so gloomy, just seems so hopeless. But it also reminds me of the times that I was buying into the stock market during March of 2020, when it also felt like the same thing. It felt gloomy. It felt just sadness during that time. But it ended up being one of the best times to buy. And it made me a lot of money during those cases. Let's first talk about Liberation Day. All right. The moment Liberation Day announced, holy cow, the next few days in the stock market is literally just nonstop going down, right? Thursday, you had a big fear. You had a couple percentage drops in the S&P 500. And then Friday, same exact thing. The issue was this, at least in my opinion. I was expecting reciprocal tariffs. That's what Donald Trump had said. He said reciprocal tariffs, right? The issue is, you know what reciprocal means. I know what reciprocal means. And the tariffs that were announced, they were not reciprocal, you guys. Those were not reciprocal tariffs at all. And as a result of that, we got surprised. We got cases where freaking Vietnam got 46% in tariffs. We got a case where China got a 34% in tariffs. Now, I went to the mall throughout this week, and literally almost everything in the mall was either from Vietnam. My Nike shoes, all the shoe companies were either from Vietnam, or the clothing was from China, right? We got a case, almost every single thing that's being sold in America is being manufactured outside. And as a result of that, all those items are going to be a lot more expensive. We have an issue with that. Now, another case about the reciprocal tariffs is that we put reciprocal tariffs on some of our allies. You have a case where Taiwan is being reciprocal tariff at 32% and China at 34%. Now, newsflash, I thought Taiwan is supposed to be an ally, right? And my understand, I thought they were an ally. I was under the assumption that Japan was an ally. I was under the assumption that Korea was an ally. But according to the tariffs, apparently not. Because of that, we put a bunch of uncertainty into the markets. And with China retaliating against the US, there's potential that other countries could retaliate. There is a case where the European Union could retaliate against the US and bring the stock market down even lower, right? There's just so much uncertainty. Now, another issue about this is that I found out that for example, there are certain companies out there that manufacture outside and bring those items into the US. And it's really hard for those companies to manufacture in the US. And that it might not even be a possibility. For example, all right, I'll give you two different examples. First one is Nike. All right. Nike makes a lot of their shoes in Vietnam and then brings them over in US. Now, the wages that they are paying in Vietnam is approximately $5,000 per year, or about $2.50 an hour. All right. Nike stockholders and Nike's leadership has a very difficult decision to make, because right now they could either go ahead and pay 46% tariffs. Holy cow, that's a lot. Or go ahead and bring those manufacturing hubs to the US, but instead of paying $2.50 an hour like they were used to paying in Vietnam, now you're going to be paying $30 an hour. Congrats. Now you're paying $35. Now, when your wages could potentially go up by 1,000%, it makes more sense that Nike just paid 45 or 46% in tariffs, which is a lot of money, by the way. All right, that's a lot of money, right? And I'm not just talking about Vietnam that makes a lot of clothing things, makes a lot of shoes for us. I'm talking about the China and all sorts of things like that. Another example, the second one is, take for example car manufacturers like in Ford, right? They make the cars in Mexico, bring them over to the US. Well, you got a big issue. because you are paying the employees in Mexico about $6 an hour. If you were to bring those jobs into the US, that's about a 40 bucks, 45 bucks an hour. Now you got an issue because do you just pay the 25% tariffs, or do you go ahead and bring those manufacturing hubs? It's almost impossible for the manufacturing hubs to be in US just because of how much they have to pay in salary. It is just so much, you guys, that it doesn't make sense for why these corporations would bring those manufacturing hubs into the US. And not only that, I just don't know if the US has the skill sets able to do all those manufacturing hubs, right? One of the issues that China and some Vietnam have a lot of strengths in is that apparently they're very good at what they do. That they have a lot of experience in manufacturing jobs, so they're very efficient at the job they do. And with all that uncertainty that has risen in the stock market, it essentially shot up the VIX to a 46 or 47 that we are experiencing right now. And to people that are unaware of what the VIX is, the best way I look at it is that it's an index that has a very good measure on how volatile the options market is, right? In plain English, if I were just to tell it to you in simple words, the way I look at it is when I think about the VIX, how do you put a number on a fear, right? The VIX is very good at putting a number to it and being able to allow us investors to compare errors. For example, you can see that the VIX during COVID was like a 66, right? And the VIX right now is around a 40, 47. So it gives you a good comparison. The fear was around 60 something in COVID era, and right now it's around the 47. Now, is that warranted? In my honest opinion, no, it's not. Right? No, it's not. Because I remember investing during COVID 2020. We had businesses shut down. Nobody was going out to restaurants. Nobody was going out to vacation. And not only that, we had no vaccines, right? Now, you're talking that era compared to right now, where people are still going to restaurants. I literally just went to Chipotle. It's freaking packed. I went to the mall. It's freaking packed. You go to vacations, people are still going on vacations. I literally just had one of my coworkers come back from vacation. You have cases where people are still spending money outside. As a result of that, I don't think it's warranted that we should be at a 47 fix. But it is what it is, right? Sometimes there could be a lot more fear than what it seems like. And as a result of that, it's as the higher the VIX goes, it does make me a bit more bullish. And here's why, you guys. My bull case on this is that back in 2008, where we had the highest VIX, and then back in 2020, where we have another high VIX, right? Those moments happen to be actually one of the best times to buy in the stock market, because the people who bought into the stock market during those times, they made a lot of money. It ended up being one of the best times to buy, which happened to be also one of the most fearful times to buy. I remember personally myself, when I was investing in March of 2020, there was no vaccines. People were having lockdown. And people were asking me, Andy, what are you doing? Right? Everything seems so negative. Why would you buy into the stock market? Yet I bought into the stock market because I had listened to the experts where you buy low, you sell high. Right? When there is fear in the market, you become more greedy. That is something I learned from Warren Buffett. And that's something that I still stick to today, where I am buying into the stock market. Yes, I agree with you guys that the stock market looks like it's going to go down more in the next 6 months. Yes, I agree with you guys that the stock market looks very uncertain and it looks like there's a lot of fear. But with that being said, I try my best to not let my emotions get the best of me. I try my best to make sure that I buy in a systematic way. I have a process for buying into the stock market, which is that every 2 weeks, I'm going to dollar cost average into the stock market. Now, you might be wondering, Andy, why would you do it every 2 weeks? It just happens to be so that I get paid on a bi-weekly basis. Every Friday when I get paid, I try to put a little bit into the stock market. And as a result, it has worked out well for me over time, right? Because you don't let your emotions control you. And that's something that has helped me a lot, because there have been moments where I've let my emotions get the best of me, where I've sometimes panic sold when I was a beginner investor 10 years ago. And that happened to be one of the biggest mistakes, right? Selling in 2015, that is crazy era. But you learn from your mistakes. Now I have a systematic way of buying stocks, and I am buying more into the stock market, even though the next 6 months look pretty bad. The next 6 months look pretty feverish. But after the 6 months, about 12 months to 18 months, I'm pretty bullish. The reason why is this: you have a case where the midterm election is coming up. And the midterm election is important because if the midterm election goes badly for Donald Trump, then and you have the Congress sweep into Democrat, Donald Trump's not going to be able to do what a lot of the things that he wants to do. Because of that, winning the midterm election is very important, right? So you can still keep control of Congress and the Senate. Because of that, it is in Mr. Donald Trump's best interest to make sure that the stock market is okay by the time it's midterm election. Because if it is not, if the stock market still looks like this, it still looks like a huge mess, then we got a problem. Because a lot of his supporters who have money in the stock market, a lot of his supporters who are close to retiree ages, who are close to ages where they're essentially retired, they're on fixed income, they have their money in the stock market. Well, once people start seeing that their accounts have plummeted, once they start seeing that their net worth has been literally impacted by one person, Mr. Donald Trump himself. It's different. This one is different from the different recessions we had. In COVID 2020, there's a pandemic, nothing you can really do, right? It's not his fault. In 2008, nothing you can really do. We just happen to have a systematic issue. But in this case, where it was Mr. Donald Trump's choice, now you got an issue because you can specifically say, hey, if you had not done the tariffs, we would not be in this particular case that we are in now. So because of that, I am a bit bullish that within 2 years, we should be seeing some changes in the stock market, something a little bit more bullish so he can claim some victory and stabilize the stock market. Now, on top of that, other things I am bullish about is that the VIX is just trading at such a high number at a 46. This is the third time that I've seen the VIX trade this high. And I'm just happy that the previous two times the VIX was trading at high numbers, it was an amazing time to buy. And I believe the data supports it again for this case. Now, obviously, it's not going to be 100% that it's a good time buying time right now. However, it's just a personal opinion of mine. And as a result, that is why I keep on dollar cost averaging. Now, the other news that's in the market right now is that there are companies that are just becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And I have been buying, you guys. I have been buying, right? These are prices that we haven't seen in so long. I believe one of the biggest winners in the outcome of these tariffs is that some of the younger people who have missed out on amazing gains of the past, they have the opportunity to buy into the stock market at record prices we've never seen before in a long, long time. Some of these stock prices I haven't seen a year ago, since 2 years ago, right? Because of that, it's like, holy cow. For younger people, it's like myself. I get an amazing opportunity to buy into the stock market at a cheaper valuation. And one of the things I noticed about the stock market is that the younger I am, the easier it has been to be a stock investor because you have time on your side, right? I have the next 40 years to invest. And in the next 40 years, I'm fairly confident that the stock market will be at all-time highs again. Now, do I know that 100%? Absolutely not. But it is the confidence that I have in the stock market. It's just essentially my sentiment and my opinion about the stock market. And it is tougher as you get older to be an investor because you don't have that much time. Imagine you are an investor becoming close to retirement age, and do you sell out of the stock market at one of the lowest points that you've ever seen in recent years? Or do you keep on being invested and potentially lose more into the stock market? There's a lot to consider here. You have to make really, really tough decisions that I don't have to make because I can be fully invested in the market. I still will be working the next 40 years of my life. Because of that, it creates a very huge, big conundrum in the stock market where you have clear winners and clear losers in the stock market. And with that, you guys, I'll see you guys on the next episode. I do hope that we get a little bit more stability in the markets for you guys. But while there's a lot of uncertainty out there, I will be taking advantage of this and just dollar cost averaging, even if that means I'll be losing money in the short term. because in the long term, in the next 40 years, I'm very happy be holding into these compounding machines here. These companies that just beat and raise their earnings. I love the whole companies I'm holding. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye bye.